In the dim light of a secluded room, Eldur sat across from Serana, their faces cast in shadows as they plotted their next move in the intricate game of power that spanned centuries. We need to find the Elders. They are the key to winning back the prize, Eldur stated, his voice low and urgent. Serana, her expression thoughtful, held up an old hand-drawn image of an ancient elder. "What about him?" she asked, tapping the parchment lightly. Eldur took the image, studying the face of the elder depicted. "Him," he muttered. "He's a strange one. I knew him a few hundred years ago, had some type of morals about who he fed off. He is powerful and would be a huge asset, but we must tread with caution." "What of the sage?" Serana inquired, her tone laced with concern and curiosity. Eldur's eyes narrowed slightly, a shadow of a plan forming behind his gaze. "Let me deal with the sage," he replied, a hint of a sinister undertone in his voice. Meanwhile, in a town far from the ancient strategists, a con man named Bill pulled up at a convenience store late at night. Inside the car, he leaned over to his passenger, a young woman with an expectant look. "I just got to grab something from the store. We need to celebrate tonight." He grinned, his voice dripping with unearned triumph. "I managed to convince some old couple to give me their details, and we grabbed all their savings, so it's champagne tonight." As Bill entered the store, the automatic doors sliding shut behind him, he noticed an unusual stillness. The usually bustling place was eerily silent, and as he walked towards the cashier's desk, he found it unattended. Just as he called out to see if anyone was there, the lights flickered and went out. The darkness enveloped him, and a chill ran down his spine. Bill's initial irritation turned to fear, and he quickly turned to leave, but as he neared the exit, a figure materialized from the shadows. It was an ancient, parasitic-looking man, his skin like weathered leather, his eyes deep and knowing. "Good evening, Bill," said the elder, his voice calm, yet carrying an ominous tone. "I hear you're in the mood for a celebration." "Me too." Without another word, the elder lunged forward, biting deep into Bill's throat and gorging himself on the crimson life force. After a moment, the elder stepped back, wiping his mouth. He turned to leave, then paused, glancing back at the limp form of Bill. He spoke, his voice now reflective, imbued with a philosophy that seemed at odds with his actions. "One must live by mutual trade, rather than taking more than one produces and stealing from others," he mused aloud, his tone almost instructive. Then, stepping into a sliver of light filtering through a window, the elder's face became fully visible for the first time. It was Eldritch, the ancient vampire, his features sharp and his presence imposing. His eyes glinted with the wisdom of ages and the weight of a moral code that, while twisted by his nature, still held a form of honor. As Eldritch vanished into the night, his departure left a trail of questions and implications. His return to this reality signaled a shift in the balance of power, a revival of old blood with old beliefs, and perhaps a new chapter in the eternal saga of Crimson Dawn. Serana found herself waiting in Eldritch's safe house, a forgotten crypt beneath the bustling streets of London. The place was hidden from the eyes of the world, a relic of the past that had seen centuries pass it by. She wandered around the dimly lit room, her fingers trailing over dust-covered surfaces. As she wiped her hand on her coat, she muttered, "Filthy," with a look of distaste. In that moment, a sudden chill swept through the room. Shadowy hands gripped her throat from behind, the shadow energy powerful and overwhelming. Serana struggled, but the force was too much for her to break free. "You have 10 seconds to explain why you're here, or I'm ending you." A voice hissed menacingly in her ear. It was Eldritch, his presence as formidable as the legends suggested. "I come in peace," Serana choked out, gasping for air as the grip around her neck tightened. Eldritch released her abruptly, and Serana stumbled forward, coughing and clutching her throat. "Don't you know, never to enter an elder's sanctum uninvited?" Eldritch scolded, his tone sharp as the edges of a knife. "Now get to the point. I'm busy." Gathering her composure, Serana quickly pleaded her case, explaining why Eldritch should join Eldur and the growing assembly of elders. Her words spilled out in urgency, portraying Eldur's vision of reclaimed glory and power. Eldritch laughed, a deep, resonating sound that echoed off the stone walls. "Eldur, is he still alive? He was a clumsy whelp, always trying to be something he was not," he remarked dismissively. Eldritch made it clear that he had no interest in joining their ranks now or ever. He continued, his voice firm and his stance unyielding. "The use of force to bend others to your will is against my beliefs. To live by compelling others, to use force to achieve what should be done through reason and mutual benefit, is to deny the very essence of our existence." Serana listened, her hope diminishing with each word. Eldritch's refusal was final, rooted in a deep-seated philosophy that rejected manipulation and coercion. "Let me be clear," Eldritch said, stepping closer, his eyes piercing into hers. "You have 10 seconds to leave or perish. Choose wisely." Fear took hold of Serana as the gravity of the situation became apparent. With no other choice, she turned and hurriedly left the crypt, the echo of her footsteps a stark reminder of Eldritch's ominous warning. As she emerged into the London night, the cold air felt like a reprieve from the oppressive atmosphere of the crypt, but the rejection stung deeply. Eldritch's words lingered in her mind, a stark philosophy that contrasted sharply with the path she and Eldur were trying to walk. Her mission had failed, and she knew the implications would not be taken lightly by Eldur. "Eldur, leader, ha!" Eldritch scoffed, his voice echoing in the now empty crypt. The idea seemed almost laughable to him. An ancient vampire who had seen leaders rise and fall, each one often less impressive than the last. He paced the length of his sanctum, his steps silent on the cold stone floor, a thoughtful frown creasing his brow. Despite his dismissive attitude towards Eldur, Serana's words about the reset of reality and the one called winter lingered in his mind. The notion that reality had been reshaped was no small matter, and the individual responsible for such a monumental act warranted attention. "He sounds interesting," Eldritch murmured to himself, the intrigue clear in his voice. The concept of someone having the power and audacity to reset reality was fascinating, and not something Eldritch could simply ignore. "I will have to find out more," he decided, his centuries-old curiosity piqued like it hadn't been in decades. Eldritch moved back to his desk, littered with ancient text and modern technology alike, a testament to his long life and adaptability. He powered up a device, its screen flickering to life in the dim lighting of the crypt. His fingers flew over the keyboard as he began to search for any traces of information about this mysterious winter. Who was he? What had driven him to reset reality? And more importantly, what were his intentions now? The crypt, filled with the soft glow of the computer screen, became a place of deep concentration as Eldritch delved into the digital world. His search was methodical and thorough, pulling from obscure databases, news archives, and even the dark corners of hidden forums. Information about winter was scarce, but each piece was a puzzle that Eldritch was determined to solve. As the night deepened outside, Eldritch's intrigue grew. The implications of winter's actions were vast, potentially affecting not just the supernatural community, but the entire fabric of reality. The thought that someone held such power was both thrilling and alarming. Eldritch leaned back in his chair, his eyes reflecting the glow of the screen. This Winter, whoever he was, had managed to capture the interest of an ancient vampire. No small feat. And now, Eldritch found himself on the brink of a new investigation, perhaps a new adventure, that could reveal secrets about the new world and the architect behind its creation. I will have to meet him, Eldritch concluded aloud, the decision settling within him like a vow. The journey to understand Winter and his new reality had just begun, and Eldritch was no stranger to the long, often perilous pursuit of knowledge. Serana returned to Eldor, her expression tense and her heart still racing from the confrontation with Eldritch. As soon as she entered the dimly lit room where Eldor was waiting, she could tell that he was eager for news, but also prepared for disappointment. "Eldritch laughed at your proposal," Serana reported, her voice tinged with frustration and a hint of fear. "He dismissed it outright." Eldor's face darkened, his hands clenching into fists at his sides. "I told you he would be tricky. There's something about Eldritch. I could never figure him out. He was always different somehow," he muttered, more to himself than to Serana. Serana nodded, her earlier terror returning as she recounted. "He almost killed me, Elder. His power is by far one of the strongest I have felt." Her voice wavered as she recalled the overwhelming force of Eldritch's shadow energy. Eldor waved her concerns aside with a dismissive hand. "It matters not," he said sharply. Then, seeing her shocked expression, he softened slightly. "Come. We have more pressing matters to attend to." He led Serana into a great hall where a vast array of elders had gathered. The hall was filled with a palpable sense of power and anticipation. As Serana and Eldor walked in, the gathered elders turned to look at them, their eyes gleaming with curiosity and ambition. "Who needs one when we have a legion?" Eldor proclaimed loudly, gesturing towards the assembled crowd. The mass and might of the Elder army were indeed impressive. Elders of all ages and strengths stood ready, their combined power radiating through the hall like a tangible force. Eldor stepped onto a raised platform at the end of the hall, his presence commanding the attention of every elder present. He cleared his throat, and the murmuring crowd fell silent, waiting for their leader to speak. "My fellow elders," Eldor began, his voice booming and confident, "today we stand on the brink of reclaiming what is rightfully ours. Our god, Nocturna, has chosen us, not just to survive, but to rule." Murmurs of approval rippled through the crowd as Eldor continued. "For too long, we have been underestimated and forgotten, but no longer. Today, we begin our march towards victory, towards the glory that the elders have always been destined for. Nothing can stop us, not Winter, not any god, and certainly not any renegade like Eldritch." Eldor's speech stirred the crowd into a fervor. "We will claim the prize for Nocturna, and prove that the elders are not just survivors of the night, but rulers of the dawn," he declared, his voice rising to a crescendo. The hall erupted in cheers and shouts, the elders united by Eldor's words and their shared vision of victory. As the echoes of their cries filled the room, Serana watched from beside Eldor, her earlier fears momentarily forgotten in the wave of collective resolve. This army, this legion of elders, was ready to fight, to reclaim their place in the world, and Eldor was their chosen leader, the architect of their resurgence. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together, driven by the promise of glory and the lure of ultimate power. Across the lands and oceans, through the dark veil of the night, shadows moved with supernatural speed from one shadow to another, forming a vast network of elders. This network spanned great distances, all part of a concerted effort to locate one person, Winter. Meanwhile, at Winter's estate, he and Mara sat together, looking out into the night. The Alpha rested quietly in his den nearby. "You truly care for him, don't you, Simon?" Mara asked softly, breaking the silence that had settled between them. "Yes, without him, we would not be here right now," Simon replied, his voice tinged with gratitude and a deeper, unspoken fear. There were moments I could feel myself slipping into a permanent rigidity of logic. The left hemisphere of my brain was trying to dominate my reasoning and thought processes. My prefrontal cortex almost gave in and became a logic machine. Had that happened, I would have cared for nothing. He paused, his eyes reflecting the moonlight, but the attachment I had with the Alpha kept the right hemisphere fighting back, connecting with emotions. He helped me regulate in a way that saved us all, which is why I could not sacrifice him. Mara nodded, understanding more deeply the bonds that tied Simon to the Alpha. "I know they are out there, and they will come for me," Simon continued. "We will just have to be ready." At that moment, a strange shadow could be seen moving quickly along the grass. Winter immediately spotted it. "They're here," he said, his voice calm yet alert. The shadow moved up to the porch, and Winter stood, ready to face whatever emerged. Then a strange, old and ancient figure stepped into the light. "Greetings. I am Eldritch. You do not need to fear me. I am not your typical vampire." "Vampire? I thought your kind hated that word," Winter replied, his stance relaxed but cautious. Eldritch smiled, a knowing gleam in his eyes. "It's who we are. Some can live with it, some can't. Now I'd like to get to know you." At this point, a terrifying roar was heard as the Alpha appeared, sensing the intrusion. "Stand down, old friend," Winter commanded softly, and the Alpha hesitated, its primal rage palpable but controlled. "Will you have a pure blood Lycan?" Eldritch observed, his interest apparent. "I can feel his primal rage. This is good. I also have a few Lycan friends, Lucas and Alara. Maybe you've met." The conversation then shifted as they all sat together on the porch, speaking into the night. Eldritch, Winter, and Mara shared stories, building a foundation of trust and mutual understanding. Eldritch spoke of his experiences and perspectives, which, while rooted in his nature as a vampire, also reflected a broader view of the world. They discussed their histories, the changes in the world, and their visions for the future. As the night deepened, what started as confrontation slowly morphed into an alliance of sorts, with each party cautiously optimistic about the benefits of their newfound understanding. This unlikely gathering under the stars marked the beginning of something new, an alliance that could change the balance of power and perhaps lead to a lasting peace, or a new confrontation in the realm of Crimson Dawn. As the night deepened, their conversation flowing effortlessly, Eldritch was the first to notice an anomaly. His ancient instincts, always attuned to the subtleties of the dark, alerted him to unwelcome guests. "I see we have some visitors," he remarked nonchalantly, his gaze shifting toward the darkness beyond the porch. Far away, 3 strange shadows moved in with an eerie grace, wisping in and out of the shadows cast by the moonlit landscape. They seemed to be approaching cautiously, yet with a purpose. "I need to take care of them," Winter declared, a tone of responsibility coloring his voice. "Oh, I'll help," Eldritch offered quickly, his voice carrying a hint of excitement for the unexpected confrontation. Without waiting for a response, Eldritch shifted into his shadow form, a skill that allowed him to move instantly across distances, melding with the darkness as if it were part of him. Winter, not to be outdone, donned his mask, and in a blink, he too merged with the shadows, using the same power as the elders. By the time Winter arrived at the scene, Eldritch had already dispatched the 3 shadowy intruders. Their essence was dissipating into the ground, their threat neutralized with almost disdainful ease by the ancient vampire. "Oh, you can shadow walk?" "Fascinating," Eldritch remarked, with a genuine interest, his eyes reflecting a playful challenge. "Race you back," he proposed, his tone light but competitive. With that, Eldritch merged back into the shadows, moving swiftly back toward the porch. Winter, embracing the challenge, followed suit, his form blending seamlessly with the night. They arrived back at the porch almost simultaneously, the brisk movement through the shadows having done little to disturb their composure. "We should have set the lichen on them. That would have been fun. But always, the chance one will slip away," Eldritch commented, with a chuckle, imagining the chaos the Alpha could have wrought. "So tell me, how long do you think you can keep that lichen before he goes pure primal? Which I would love to see, by the way," Eldritch inquired, his curiosity about the Alpha's nature and Winter's controls evident in his tone. "He won't," Winter replied firmly, his confidence in his bond with the Alpha unshakable. Eldritch looked at Winter with a strange expression, a mix of skepticism and intrigue. "If you say so," he murmured, the words hanging between them like a veiled challenge to the stability of Winter's assurances. The night wore on, and their discussions delved deeper into their pasts, their powers, and the intricacies of their current realities. Eldritch's visit, initially a confrontation, had morphed into a complex dance of mutual respect and cautious alliance. As the first light of dawn threatened the horizon, both Eldritch and Winter knew that the events of this night would set the tone for what was to come. Sometime later, within the cold stone walls of their clandestine meeting room, Serana hurriedly approached Eldor, a sense of urgency marking her every step. "All the scouts are back. All but 3, she reported, her brow furrowed with concern. "They should have been covering this area, but they have disappeared." "So that's where he'll be then," Eldor mused, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. His eyes gleamed with a mixture of calculation and anticipation. "I want our entire force to be ready to descend on that area. But how can we stop Winter? He doesn't have the power of the gods, but he could have beaten us without it." "We can't beat him," Serana argued, her voice laced with frustration and a hint of fear. "Have faith, my dear," Eldor replied, his tone soothing yet firm. "Winter's only power over us was his gadgets. He could not control our minds. His fake sunlight was all he had, but we have something better." Eldor paused, allowing his words to sink in before continuing. "We have developed a technology, a kind of shielding. It's based on a rare mineral compound that we've engineered. This compound absorbs and nullifies the UV spectrum emitted by Winter's fake sunlight devices. We've crafted it into wearable amulets for all our operatives." He walked over to a table where several dark, lustrous stones lay scattered. Picking one up, he held it out for Serana to see. These stones are not just shields, they are part of an offensive strategy. When activated, they can create an aura around the wearer, making us invisible to any artificial UV detection and impervious to the harmful effects of this fake sunlight. Serana nodded, her anxiety easing slightly with the knowledge of this new defense. "This could change everything," she admitted, a spark of hope light in her eyes. "Yes, it could," Eldor agreed, a smirk playing at the edges of his lips. "And there's more. These stones also enhance our natural abilities. They strengthen our shadow melding skills, allowing us faster and more secure movements through darkness. Winter won't see us coming." Satisfied with the plan taking shape, Eldar turned his gaze towards the large map on the wall, his finger tracing potential routes to their target area. Prepare the Eldars. It's time to test our new advantage. We will move under the cover of night, and by dawn, Winter will realize that he's not the only one who can manipulate the elements of nature to his will. Serana felt a renewed sense of purpose as she left to relay Eldar's orders. The Eldars would be ready, each now equipped with the tools to counteract Winter's technological prowess. The game was evolving, and with Eldar's leadership, they were no longer mere players, but contenders with a real chance at victory. "You know they are coming," Eldritch stated matter-of-factly, his gaze piercing through the dim light of the evening. "Yes," Winter replied calmly, his eyes not leaving the horizon where shadows began to gather. "I am ready. I've been working on something new, just for such a day like this. I got the idea from an old space movie where this guy turns to the dark side." "Interesting," Eldritch murmured, intrigued by Winter's cryptic hint. As time passed, the tension around the estate grew palpable. Suddenly, Eldritch gave the alarm. "They're here again! Lots of them!" "I know," Winter responded without turning. The Alpha stood up from behind Winter, towering over him, his form radiating readiness for the impending conflict. "Oh, this will be good," Eldritch grinned, his eyes sparkling with the thrill of the upcoming battle. "Don't forget, I'm on your side out there, big guy," he said to the Alpha, who let out a low growl in response, acknowledging the alliance. As the shadows swarmed closer to the estate, Mara took cover. Winter nodded at Eldritch. "You may want to take cover," he suggested, just as over 50 shadows converged toward the porch. Eldritch ducked inside as Winter activated his UV and infrared light defense systems. However, the shadows kept advancing. "Excellent," Winter admired quietly, acknowledging the Elder's technology designed to counter his defenses. "Ready, old friend?" Winter asked the Alpha, who responded with a fierce roar. Some of the advancing shadows hesitated, thrown off by the presence of the Alpha, but as the Elders began to materialize from the shadows, Winter smiled behind his mask. "I have been dying to try this," he declared, and held up a hilt of a sword handle. He clicked a button, and from the hilt emitted a buzzing sound, followed by a long beam of light emerging from it. A light sword. "They may be able to counter a wide beam, but how about a focused one?" Winter taunted, waving the sword back and forth. More Elders materialized, surrounding the estate. "When you're ready," Winter signaled to the Alpha. With the energy of a catapult released, the Alpha lunged at the Elders, tearing through their ranks with primal ferocity. Winter then materialized into the fray, swinging his light sword. The concentrated beam sliced through any Elder it touched, their stones unable to stop the focused energy. Eldritch reappeared, wielding his own ancient powers, felling more of the Elders with each precise move. The battle raged fiercely, the night air filled with the sounds of combat, cries of the fallen, and the buzzing of Winter's light sword. Finally, what remained of the Elders' forces retreated, overwhelmed by the combined might of Winter, the Alpha, and Eldritch. "Turn that thing off, Darth Winter," Eldritch joked, a smirk playing on his lips. "In all my years, I finally got to watch a true blood Lycan in action, and not against me," he added, his voice filled with a mixture of respect and relief. "They will be back, and with greater numbers and powers," Winter stated gravely, turning off his light sword. "During the fray, I was able to take data directly from one of them, using my weapon. I know where Elder is." As they regrouped on the porch, Their bodies weary, but spirits high from the victory, the trio prepared for the challenges ahead. Elder and his forces would undoubtedly strike again, but for now, they had won a crucial battle. With the data Winter had collected, they had a new advantage, an opportunity to take the fight directly to Elder, potentially ending the conflict once and for all. As the dust settles on the battlefield at Winter's estate, the silence of the night belies the storm that is brewing in the shadows. The victory, though sweet, is but a prelude to the looming conflicts and the deeper machinations of those involved in this ancient struggle for power. In the upcoming Crimson Dawn Season 3, Part 8, questions hang in the air like the sharp scent of rain before a storm. What new secrets can the Elders devise to counter him? As they regroup and reassess, their desperation may lead them to darker, more desperate measures. Will Elder find a way to harness powers even he has feared to touch? Eldritch's role, the ancient vampire Eldritch, now aligned with Winter, brings centuries of wisdom and cunning to the table, but his own motives remain shrouded in mystery. What long-term plans does he harbor, and how will his alliance with Winter and the Alpha shift the balance of power? The Alpha's destiny. Loyal and powerful, the Alpha has proven his might time and again. But as the stakes grow higher, how will this noble creature evolve? Will his primal instincts come to the fore, leading him to a path of ferocity? Or will his bond with Winter help him find a new way to harness his raw energies? Stephen Lestat's Gambit. Under the eerie guidance of Necros, Stephen Lestat continues his chilling experiments. Is he merely biding his time, waiting for the perfect moment to unleash his new creations? How will his actions under the shadow of Necros influence the coming battles? The stage is set for a showdown that will test loyalties, challenge the limits of power, and perhaps alter the course of reality itself. Find out what lies in store for Winter, Eldritch, the Alpha, and their formidable foes in the next thrilling installment of Crimson Dawn Season 3, Part 8. Shadows Reclaimed. Coming soon.
Greetings, mortals and immortals alike. I am Nocturna, the god of the Elders. I see you've been following the Crimson Dawn series. Excellent choice. Your loyalty does not go unnoticed, and I, the most powerful of all gods, thank you for it. Don't forget to subscribe, for the dawn is merely the beginning. To Eldur, my loyal subject, I place my faith in you. Winter may have cheated and stolen what was mine, but my wrath is as eternal as the night. Fear not, for the balance will be restored. And to all of you watching, know this: you shall soon join my legion of elders. I have a special place reserved just for you. Embrace the night, and your true power will awaken. Until then, keep watching, keep subscribing, and remember, Nocturna sees all.